I live in a small apartment in a random city. I work as a systems technician, a very boring job that I honestly couldn't stand, but it served me well for the moment. My dream was to be a video game programmer, and soon I would get there. In the meantime, I made do with the little I had. My routine was simple: work, go home, and get lost in the internet until I fell asleep. I always considered myself a very quiet person with a very low profile, but something inside me wanted more. I felt that I would never fulfill my dream. I would never be anything if I didn't encourage myself to at least do something different. Although I didn't. Sometimes I got bored of surfing the same old social networks and forums, so I started to look into the deep web. I knew it was a place full of strange things, rumors of the forbidden. It was like an instinct to do something different. The fact that it was forbidden excited me. I felt like I was breaking the rules for the first time. Beyond that, I didn't take it seriously. To me, it was just another corner of the internet where people exaggerated stories to scare others, but still, it made me feel good. I started with the basics: tutorials on how to access a secure browser, sites with catalogs of banned books, and forums full of discussions that looked like something out of a conspiracy movie. But I didn't find anything particularly disturbing until I saw a link that had no description, just a random ID number. I clicked it without thinking. The link took me to a simple, almost empty forum. Its design was basic with a black background and white text. There were a few topics, most of them closed. One of them was active, marked with a strange symbol, an eye made with rough lines. I went inside. Inside, a video and a message that said, "Watch this if you're still here after. You're part of it." The video started. It showed a dreary room with concrete walls lit by a single yellowish spotlight. In the center was a chair, and in the chair, a man bound with ropes. He had a black hood over his head. Several seconds passed with nothing happening, and I was about to close it when someone appeared in the frame. He wore a featureless white mask, except for some holes in the eyes. Without speaking, the masked man walked toward the bound man. The video ended there abruptly. I felt a shudder, but convinced myself it was a joke. I closed the page and turned off the computer. I thought no more about it until my phone vibrated. It was a message from an unknown number that said, "You know too much now. Watch your step, Jason." My blood ran cold. I couldn't remember using my name anywhere. The next few days were a torment. Everything seemed normal, but I couldn't get that message out of my head. I tried to convince myself that it was a coincidence, a practical joke from someone who tracked my IP. I didn't think anyone would go to the trouble of coming to my house. How many people would go into that place? However, things started to get strange. The first sign was that my computer stopped working. When I tried to turn it on, the screen showed only a black background with a line of text. No peeking. Then other messages started appearing. "Wait for us. We will meet soon," or "We are watching you." Just in case, I deactivated the webcam of the camera. I didn't know how to fix it without losing all the data on the hard drive. I didn't really believe the hackers, but the damage to my computer had been real, and in itself, that was already too annoying because it was very difficult to work from the notebook. One night, while checking the building's security cameras from my phone, I saw something that made me freeze. At 3:00 a.m., someone was walking slowly down the hallway in front of my door. He was wearing a white mask, just like the one in the video. He never touched my door. He just walked by, stopping for a few seconds in front of it before disappearing. At that moment, everything took on a different dimension. I was terrified. I stopped leaving the house except to go grocery shopping. I checked the locks 3 times before going to sleep. I blocked the windows with furniture, convinced that someone might come in. But I couldn't help it. I felt like I was being watched. This wasn't even paranormal. I was in too deep. If these men went to the trouble of coming, did it mean that I had gotten into a deep web game? Could this mean that they were spectators waiting to kill me? I thought that the mask could be just a coincidence, but it wasn't innocent either. It was too much of a coincidence. One night, I found an envelope under the door. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a photo. It was me, asleep in my bed. The picture was taken from inside my apartment. How the hell had they gotten in? Through a window I might have left open? Through the ceiling? Something snapped inside me. It was no longer paranoia. I was being hunted. I tried to go to the police, but I didn't know where to start. What was I going to tell them? That someone on the deep web was messing with me? I stopped using my phone and disconnected everything from the internet. I went to sleep for a few nights in a hotel until I had everything figured out. I thought if I isolated myself, they would lose interest. But it was worse. That same night, someone knocked on my door. It wasn't a friendly knock. It was loud, rhythmic knocking as if they wanted to make sure I heard them. The knocking stopped, and an awkward silence fell over the place. I approached the door quietly, trying to hear something. That's when I heard it. "We know you're in there, Jason. Let us in." "You know we can come in if we want to, but we're asking you to open the door for us." "Don't make it more complicated, Jason. Open up." I froze, not knowing what to do. Suddenly, I heard a noise behind me. I turned quickly and saw someone standing in the corner of the room. It was him, the white mask. He carried no visible weapons, but his mere presence was enough to paralyze me. He walked towards me without hurry, while I backed up until I bumped into the wall. I tried to speak, to ask him to leave, but my voice wouldn't come out. When he was in front of me, he pulled a knife from his pocket. He did not speak. He simply watched me for what seemed like eternal minutes, until he placed the blade against my arm and pressed. The pain was excruciating. I fell to the ground, but he didn't stop. He picked me up forcefully and threw me onto the couch. Then he pulled out his phone and started recording. "Smile, Jason. You're part of the file now." I couldn't move. Fear and pain had completely paralyzed me. The man approached the door as if knowing I would not escape, and opened it. From there, 2 other men came in. They all came back to me, and while one grabbed the phone to film, and the other stood by and did nothing, the first attacker took his time, slowly cutting my arms while the other recorded everything with his phone. "Ah! Stop! It hurts!" "Do you know why we picked you, Jason?" "For getting on that page." "No, that page was made for you. You would have entered it anyway." "Then why?" "Because no one will miss you." "You're a useless fat guy who spends his days locked up. You'll never do anything you want to do. Life will pass you by and nothing will change." And that was the preamble. The man spent the whole night torturing me, beating me, and saying horrible things to me. When the night came to an end, he stopped recording. He took one last look at me before he hit me over the head with the butt of the knife. Before I finished passing out, they said one more thing to me. "We are not heroes, Jason. We want you to stay pathetic. If you do something to fix your life, we'll be back." When I woke up, I was in my apartment. On the table, someone had left a USB. I didn't have the heart to look at it. I called the police, but when they arrived, they found nothing strange. They treated me like a madman, someone who had lost touch with reality and perhaps had injured himself. I moved out soon after, but I know it's no use. Today, I have one more excuse to do nothing. I am terrified that if I want to do the things I like, they will come back and kill me.
I'm Ethan. I'm 24 and I've been unemployed for a while now. I don't have much more than a YouTube stream. I'm not famous or anything, but I have a loyal following that's always there. I know my stream won't grow overnight, but having a loyal following is the first step to building an audience. Lately, to stand out a bit, I've gotten into a weird niche, buying supposedly cursed stuff from the deep web. It's a long shot, but you never know what they might bring you. I wasn't so much worried about the paranormal as I was afraid of being part of a real crime. But in that case, I would get a lot of views, so what the hell? What could I lose? A few days ago, I found a strange forum. In it, there was a thread about a supposedly possessed object, a doll with a grotesque face, empty eyes, and a crooked mouth as if it were screaming. The description was vague, but it said the doll was part of a collection found in an orphanage that had been closed after unexplained events occurred. That was it. No details or proof. It was perfect. I knew that even if it was a hoax, it would be enough to make an entertaining stream. I paid for it, and it arrived 2 days later. The box was battered, with no labels or return address. When I pulled it out, the doll looked even more disturbing in person. I left it on a shelf waiting for stream night. I didn't touch it. I don't know why, but I didn't want to. The night came. Everything was ready. Lights, camera, and the doll in the center of my desk. I opened the chat to interact with my viewers while I set up the last details. As usual, most of the comments were jokes and teasing. "That's the big cursed doll? It looks like something out of a thrift store." "You don't have the guts to touch it, Ethan. Surely you just show it off, and that's it. I bet nothing's going on. Just another cheap fraud, like you." I smiled forcedly, trying to keep my tone light. Today the comments were particularly aggressive. Normally they wouldn't react in this way, but instead of getting angry or responding to them, I tried to calm the waters and wrote, "All right, settle down. Today we're going to see if this doll is cursed or if I got ripped off as usual." "Play with it already, you coward. What's the worst that could happen?" "If you don't, it'll be the most boring stream you've ever done." "Come on, Ethan. We're not paying you to breathe on camera." I looked at the dummy. It seemed to look back at me, even though I knew that was impossible. After a few seconds of hesitation, I took a breath and said, "Okay, I'll do it. But if anything weird happens, it's your fault." I reached out slowly, touching the doll with one finger. Nothing happened. The audience began to scoff more. "That's it? What a disappointment. You brushed it like it was going to bite you. Touch it for real." "You're a joke, Ethan. You're not even trying." I was annoyed. I didn't understand why, but the chat was really aggressive that night. "Okay, what's your problem, guys? It's just a dummy. I'm not afraid of it. Since you insist, I'll touch it." I lifted him with both hands and brought him closer to the camera. The instant I held him up, the lights in my room started to flicker. Then, everything went out. My computer remained on, dimly illuminating the doll in my hands. "Nice trick, Ethan. You managed to make it look real. Turning off the lights. Wow, how original. Come on, at least pretend you care about the show. The computer is still on." I wasn't acting. I felt like something had changed in the atmosphere. How come everything was off, but not the computer? I looked around, but I couldn't see anything beyond the dim glow of the screen. I decided to let go of the dummy and look for something to light up, but when I got up, the door wouldn't open. The knob wouldn't turn, and the door wouldn't move an inch, as if it were sealed. I knocked on the hard wood. "Mom! Dad! Can anyone hear me? Please, I'm trapped!" I went back to the desk and read the chat. It was still active, but the messages were getting stranger and stranger. "They can't hear you, Ethan. No one can." "What will you do now? Will you go on with the show?" "How desperate it is to know you're going to die, isn't it?" Sweat beaded on my forehead as I tried to calm down. "This isn't part of the plan," I muttered, not sure if I was talking to myself or them. The camera was still focusing on me, but I felt like someone else was watching me now. Suddenly, a movement caught my attention. In the darkest corner of the room, something moved. It was barely noticeable at first, like a shift in the shadows. Then I saw it. A tall, slender figure, dark as the void, gliding toward me. It didn't walk, it hovered, and with every second it seemed larger, closer. The chat was still active. "What's that behind you? Are you acting or are you really scared? It looks real. This is amazing. Keep it up." I turned toward the figure, but I couldn't see a face. No details, just an approaching shadow extending what appeared to be long, twisted arms. The computer was the only source of light, and despite the darkness, the doll was still perfectly visible on my desk, as if waiting for something. I pounded on the door with all my might, screaming for help. "Help! Let me out, somebody, please!" The figure stopped a few steps away from me. It extended an arm, and for a second I felt an indescribable chill, as if all the air had been ripped out of the room. Just as the figure was about to touch me, the door burst open. The house light came back, illuminating the room abruptly. My mother stood there, looking confused and worried. "Ethan, it's time for dinner." I fell to the floor, trembling, unable to articulate a word. My mother ran to me. "What's wrong? What is happening?" I told her everything. The doll, the light that went out, the door that wouldn't move, and the figure that almost touched me. My mother looked at me in disbelief, but shook her head. "Ethan, we didn't hear anything. We were in the kitchen the whole time. If you had yelled, we would have heard you. The door wasn't locked." I looked over at the desk. The dummy was still there, untouched, with its crooked expression looking at me. After calming down, I checked my computer to try to figure out with my viewers what had happened. The transmission was not working. Something was wrong. When I tried to play it back, there was no recording. The stream hadn't even started. The chat, which had been full of messages, was empty. It was as if there had never been any viewers. I messaged most of my recurrent viewers, the ones I had seen comment on so many things, and none of them recognized anything that had happened. All three told me the same thing. I didn't open my stream that night. That was enough for me. I grabbed the doll and threw it in the trash on the street. I was never going to buy anything on the deep web again. I wasn't even going to enter the deep web. I promised myself that it would end there. But you know what? Since that night, I didn't go back to streaming either. I know that nothing bad would happen to me if I did, but I was so scared that I never dared to do it again.
My name is Lauren, and I've been living on my own for the past 2 months. I ended a 5-year relationship with Nathan, a controlling and manipulative guy who never let me be myself. It wasn't easy to leave him, but I couldn't take his behavior anymore. The last time we talked, he told me I was going to regret it, that someday I would realize my mistake. I thought he was just hurt, but those words haven't stopped haunting me since. My life is not very exciting. I work in an administrative office, live in a small apartment, and spend my evenings watching series or surfing on my cell phone. At first, being alone was liberating, but lately, something feels off. Little things. Things are out of place at home. That feeling that someone is watching you, even though no one is there. The first time I saw it was after work. I was walking out of the building when I noticed a man standing across the street. He was wearing a dark suit and was looking directly at me. He wasn't doing anything. He wasn't moving. He was just standing there. I walked quickly to my car trying to ignore him, but I couldn't stop feeling his gaze on my back until I walked away. I thought it was a coincidence. Now I know it wasn't. Everything started to get stranger. One afternoon, I found a flower in my mailbox. A red rose, no card. I didn't think anything of it, but the next day, another one appeared. After that, flowers started arriving almost every day. One of them had a note. "Loneliness is good for you." My heart skipped a beat. No one knew I was lonely, did they? Then came the more explicit things. One night, as I was going up to my apartment, I saw that my door was ajar. I entered cautiously, but there didn't seem to be anything out of place except for a note written in black marker on the kitchen table. "Nice pajamas last night." That night, I realized that someone was watching me, even inside my house. But it wasn't just the notes. I started noticing more strange men hanging around in my building. There was one in particular that got on my nerves. He wasn't wearing a shirt and always seemed to be nearby, either across the street or in the driveway of my building. He would do nothing but stare. Sometimes he'd smile, but he wouldn't say anything. He was so brazen it made me want to scream. Among them, the man in the suit kept popping up from time to time. Unlike the others, he didn't seem to be like them. There were no smiles or provocations, just a constant, cold vigilance. But that made it all the more frightening. One day, as I was leaving work, I found a full bouquet on the windshield of my car. This time the note was explicit. "You're even prettier when you're scared." I felt a knot in my stomach. I threw it in the trash and locked myself in my car, checking every mirror before I started. When I finally dared to look back, I saw someone standing a few feet away. The shirtless man. That night was worse. I heard noises at my window, light but constant knocking. I live on the second floor, so there shouldn't be anyone there. I approached carefully and saw the flash of a cell phone. Someone was trying to take pictures. I screamed and the intruder ran away. But as I calmed down, I looked down the street and saw him, the man in the suit. He was standing by a lamppost, looking at me. Unlike the other one, he didn't move or try to hide. For the first time, I felt there was something bigger behind all this. Why was this man watching me? What did he want? Over the next few days, pictures started appearing in my mailbox. There were pictures of me walking down the street, coming out of my building, even inside my house. All were taken from far away, except for one. A picture of me sleeping. There was no way someone could have gotten in without me noticing. That night, I didn't sleep. I moved a piece of furniture in front of the door and held a knife in my hand until dawn. The shirtless man did not disappear. I saw him almost every day, always near my building or my work. Sometimes he stopped to watch me directly, sometimes he pretended to be distracted, but I knew he was there for me. He was joined by others, different men, each with their own style of harassing me. Some left flowers, others left notes. One even tried to talk to me as I was leaving the supermarket, but I managed to slip away. The man in the suit also kept showing up, although much less than the others. Once I saw him in the parking lot of my office, standing next to my car. I walked toward him, determined to confront him, but when I was a few steps away, he simply turned around and walked away. That gesture left me more uneasy than ever. Why wasn't he doing anything? Why was he just watching? Finally, I decided to call for help. But instead of going to the police again, I called Nathan. I pretended that I wanted to talk, that I was considering going back to him. My intention was simple. I couldn't face this alone, and although I didn't entirely trust him, I felt I had no other choice. We arranged to meet that night. We went out to the movies, and during the movie, I noticed that he wouldn't leave his cell phone. He carried it everywhere. In the parking lot, Nathan discovered he had a flat tire. As he tried to change it, his cell phone vibrated. He picked it up and left it on the console. Curiosity got the better of me, and I grabbed it. I opened his chat list and found something I would have preferred not to have found. A chat with his best friend. A horrible, disgusting man that I always hated. In that chat, they were laughing at me. I looked at the chat and what I saw shocked me. His psycho friend had a lot of pictures of me, my address, my information, everything. Nathan had sent him everything. The reason? To leak it on the deep web, a place Nathan's friend frequented a lot and encouraged people to harass me. I was furious, full of anger, and wanted to tell Nathan everything. I got out of the car with his cell phone ready to make him bow his head and regret what he had done, but it didn't turn out as I expected. "What the hell is this?" His face changed immediately. "You had no right to see that! What the hell are you doing looking at my cell phone? Are you checking cell phones now?" Suddenly, he grabbed my arm tightly. I tried to let go, but he pushed me against the car door. How is it my fault that I find you leaking pictures of me to the deep web? Have you gone crazy? And you're going to tell me what to do with my cell phone? We are not dating anymore. I can do whatever the hell I want. The man tried to hit me, but suddenly, someone came out of the shadows. The man in the suit was there. He grabbed Nathan from behind and stabbed him in the back with a knife. Nathan fell to the ground, not understanding what was happening. The man in the suit looked at me. I had never been so close to him before. Please, don't hurt me. I won't hurt you. I came here for him. The deep web is full of bad people. I'm bad too, but I like to take it out on worse people. That doesn't give you the right to kill him. He could go to jail. You could call the police, but you killed him. Suddenly, the man jumped towards me with a handkerchief in his hand. I started to feel very sleepy. That was chloroform. When I woke up, I was still in the parking lot, but something had changed. There was no sign of Nathan, his car, or the man in the suit. My mind was blank, unable to process what had happened. I thought about calling the police, but what if they didn't believe me? I decided to try my luck, and as unlikely as it was, I got away with it. None of Nathan's family thought I had anything to do with it, and Nathan's friend, he also disappeared before he could testify to anything. Eventually, the men stopped harassing me. They probably heard about what happened, and maybe they got scared. Maybe someone warned them, possibly the man in the suit. Today, I don't feel like anyone is stalking me or following me, but I am afraid. Afraid that some of these sick people might follow me again after a while, or the man in the suit himself might show up to finish off the one person who saw him.